Hey, what's up guys, it's WiseGuyVito here, and today I'm going to go over the support weapons and how I would rank them based upon feel, performance, what have you, feeling of the weapon against the Terminid faction. So basically, like, this would kind of just be like how good the weapon is against the Terminid faction overall. So of course, like, share, and subscribe, greatly helps me out. I greatly appreciate all the support that I've gotten so far, and more support would be great. Thank you so much, guys. Also, comment down below about what you think is the best support weapon against the Terminid faction. Kind of give me your thoughts on it. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me where I'm wrong. And let's get straight into the video. So before we start, let's go over the tiers real quick. So S tier would be, this is top line. Really good against Terminid faction. Really powerful. It does fulfill kind of like that power fantasy against the Terminids. And actually just performs very, very well against Terminids. A tier is, it's above average in performance. It might have one glaring issue against it, but for the most part, it still feels fine to use against Terminids. B tier is average, kind of meh performance, but for the most part, it's fine. It can still run well in super held out difficulty. C tier, below average, definitely needs some help. Kind of need some buffs along the way, in my opinion. I don't think they did too much to this weapon, or maybe they didn't do really enough to it during the 60-day plan, and we'll kind of go over that. And then D tier, it's a dookie weapon. It's bad. It definitely needs a rework to it, and we'll kind of go over what weapons, if at all, that there is in D tier. That's kind of just like a bad weapon overall. So let's get straight into the tier list. So the AMR, which is the anti-material rifle, I do think it probably falls in A tier right now for me. There's nothing particularly bad about the rifle. It's just that the autocannon exists, and I prefer to take the autocannon against bugs. And the autocannon does very good against bots too. The autocannon has just been like a solid weapon overall, but I think particularly against the bugs, I do think that the AMR is just like a playstyle thing. It feels great to use. It did have a problem for the longest time of misaligning sights. I don't think it has that problem anymore since the last time I used it, but it has AP4 now, so it can damage chargers, it can damage Battle Titans and stuff like that, but nothing too fantastic on that side, in my opinion. Like, you still want to aim for the chargers' butts for the most part, and for Battle Titans, you might need like a little bit of help from your teammates whenever you're going up against Battle Titans. Otherwise, like, you're going to have to just consistently hit their heads, and that might be a little bit harder just overall. Whereas, something like a Recoilless or a Quasar and stuff like that, it may be like a little bit more easier, because you can just one-shot headshot a Battle Titan with those weapons. So for the time being, I'm going to put it in A tier, but it's still a fine weapon. It just has like a different play style, which is a more like sit back kind of play style to it. So I'm going to put it in A tier. The arc thrower, currently, for me anyways, it feels kind of meh. Nothing really wow about it, other than just like it does really, really good crowd control. It does kill very well as well. I just think that against chargers and Battle Titans, like you're going to be standing there for a very long time, shocking them, right? Especially against chargers, because chargers, like, they won't attack you anymore because, like, you stun them, which is really good if you're trying to crowd control. But if you want to get the charger out of the way and not just stand there the entire day, I do feel like it needs to kill chargers a little bit faster, and I also think that also needs to kill Battle Titans a little bit faster. And then I think it'd be an actual decent support weapon to use. But for the most part, to me, I feel like that the arc thrower is more of a support role weapon than it was before when it first came out, which was kind of like an aggressive, friendly fire machine type of support weapon. But for me personally, I again, like, this comes just down to play style. What you want to do, like in a more like support role type of thing, and just completely just CC like the entire battlefield. But for the most part, I'm gonna put this in B tier. The Expendable Rockets, I do think they're probably A tier at this point. Again, it just comes down to play style. You're gonna hear me say that a lot whenever it comes down to some of these weapons, especially in A and B. But whenever it comes down to the Expendables, it's not as good as the Recoilless. In my opinion, it's not. The Recoilless is very, very good right now. The Expendables, what they offer to you is, again, more of that kind of like support role to it, but it actually can one-shot headshot chargers. But like I'm pretty sure you still have to 2-tap Bile Titans in the head, while the Recoilless can just one-shot everything, and you have ammo for it, right? And you can continuously pick up ammo for it, and the Recoilless, even with a single person, and no team reloads or anything like that, I think that it actually does, I think the Recoilless is actually better than the Expendables. But the Expendables, what they do offer you is more of a support role, again, like I was saying before, where like your teammates can come pick up 2 rockets, like you can fire 2 rockets back, like back to back and stuff like that. But the low cooldown type of builds that you want to do, this is definitely like a must take against Terminid. Is that, and probably like the Commando. But for the time being, in my opinion, I think that these have kind of fallen off because of the buffs that the Recoilless got, and that it can just basically kind of like one shot at anything in the head, which is nuts against more like the beefier enemies on the Terminid faction side. So I do think that the Recoilless is a little bit overpowered in my opinion right now, but that might not be a popular opinion. But anyways, I'm going to put this in A tier for the time being. The Autocannon I do think is S tier. The versatility of it, the programmable ammo to it, it does have AP4 to it. I would still use it as you did before, because it just made that thing much better. You can 2 or 3 tap charger butts, and they just walk towards you and just die because their bleed out's very fast. Blow the stacks out of Bile Titans and then shoot them in the head, or you can just shoot them in the head and then as a fairly quick TTK, not like a Recoilless where I can just one shot things in the head, but it's just an overall just versatile weapon, right? It does very, very good against bile spewers, like the more tankier bugs in the game, impalers, commandos, just stuff like that. Like it does, or those commando or like commander broods or whatever. It does very, very well against them, but for the most part, like it's just the versatility of it. Like it's just super, super well. It does also anti-air. I don't feel like the anti-air rounds do that great in my opinion, but like they didn't need to buff the autocannon, and they buffed it anyways, right? So in my opinion, I do think it's probably like the best weapon in the game currently, just because of the versatility to it. But they like Airhead loves this gun to death, so they're going to keep on buffing it and continuously just make it better. Has fantastic reload as well, so I'm going to put it in S tier. The Commando I do think is A tier, kind of similar to the Expendables. Low cooldown, low damage rockets. Recoilless does a job much better, but again, it just comes down to play style. But to me, why bring any of these whenever you can just bring the Recoilless, in my opinion? If we're just talking about just efficiency, right? But if we're talking about playstyle, I would definitely pair these up in a low cooldown build where you're just using stratagems that have a fairly low cooldown. And you're just constantly just throwing out something against the enemy. I think that it works well in those cases. But I'm gonna put it in A tier for the time being because like you can trace the rockets around. It does well against shooting things from super far away. So like the spore spewers, the shrieker nest and stuff like that does very, does very well against them. And you get it back very quickly. So if you use it, if you don't kill the thing that you're getting, then you just have to wait just like a little bit, and then you get it back in. You just throw it down again. It's great for sharing it, sharing with teammates and stuff like that. But you get one though, instead of like the 2 from the Expendables. But it of itself isn't expendable. So that's why I'm putting it in A tier. The gas thrower, I guess is what's called. It's like a flamethrower, but just a gas gun or whatever. I feel like this is a very, very support rolly, but it feels mid to me just because of the soft lock. So I'm gonna put it in average. So or B tier. If they got rid of the soft lock, so whenever you spray something with gas, the enemies can still soft lock onto you and still run right straight toward you and hit you still. And in the current build of the game, you can still get 2-shot. Or sorry, you will get 2-shot by things because they're upping the damage against you. And there's other mechanics other than just the soft lock stuff, which is like the 2-shot stuff is really, really annoying. But if they fix the soft lock issues, that would definitely bump it up to A in my opinion. But until they do that, it's definitely going to be B. It's just really, really good stun, and all the enemies kind of like attack not necessarily each other, but sometimes they will, but it's like kind of like super random and just a very inconsistent. But you basically have like a stun on command that you can just tap fire, right? And it does very well in that regard. That's why I think gas grenades are also like S tier as like a grenade. But as far as like a stratagem weapon, in my opinion, it kind of feels meh to me. And until they kind of fix that, it's kind of going to be meh for me for the time being. The grenade launcher, I do think it has gotten way better. I'm gonna put it in A right now, and the reason why I'm gonna put it in A is because I think that it does well against bigger bugs, so like spewers, brood commanders, has great CC control, does great against patrols, does fantastic against, you know, like bug holes and stuff like that because it can blow it up. I think the only problem is the anti-tank stuff. You know, it supposedly has AP4. But whenever I use it against AP4s, like if you're just shooting on top of the charger, it doesn't do that great. You have to kind of shoot like underneath them in order to blow up their butt, and then once that happens, then they'll just die out. Against Biles, it does, you know, fairly decently well against it. But to me, like it's like I can just bring a recoilless and just do the exact same thing, if not better, right? Again, like you're gonna. I hate to keep on saying that the recoilless is better, but the recoilless is just better against everything. Whenever it comes down to the bugs, like I do think it's the ultimate Terminid weapon in the game right now. But I do think that the grenade launcher does bring a nice play style thing, which is CC control, you know, crowd control, can clear up bug breaches or bug holes very quickly, and has some anti-tank, you know, like capabilities to it. But other than that, you know, for me, it's not necessarily well, but I'm gonna put it in above average because it does feel better than what it used to. The heavy machine gun, I'll put this in D tier right now. I don't know what they did to it. I'm pretty sure that they lowered the durable damage to it, and now this gun feels awful to use. It feels really bad to use right now currently. And until they need to revert the durable damage change back again, otherwise it would probably be up in A tier probably. But it has AP4, it has some things going for it. It's just like the durable damage just sucks ass. It's so bad. To me right now, the machine gun to use in or a machine gun support strategy to use right now is just a regular machine gun, because of, you know, the medium armor penetration to it. You can bring stratagems to kind of support it right now. So like, you know, the precision orbital strikes, the railgun strikes, you know, like it's just an overall just great crowd control thing. If you want to go into that role of just straight crowd control and just spray and pray everything, right? It feels very good to use against that, especially against those like bile spewers and such. But, you know, to me, I think it feels better. But anyways, the heavy machine gun though, once it gets its turbo damage reworked back, you know, I think that it definitely would be A tier at that point. It might be S tier, but then again, like we kind of have to see what it would be like if the turbo damage was back to where it was. So I'm gonna put it in D tier for the time being. The flamethrower. Now, I might have a controversial thing to say about the flamethrower. I do not think it's S tier. I do not think it's A tier either. I do think it's probably B tier. And the reason why I think that's B tier is because it doesn't feel like it did before. It just really doesn't at the time being. And I hate to say that about it, because like it definitely feels better than what it was after Escalation of Freedom, because Escalation of Freedom, it was worthless, it was trash. You know, now the only thing that had it going for it was crowd control, but people liked it because you could crowd control with it, and you could also have good anti-tank. Now you can do somewhat decent anti-tank. But to me, it doesn't feel like how it was before. And I want them to return it to the way it was before, because I don't think that chargers burn as quickly as they did. And that's what kind of, because again, if I'm going to use this up close against a charger that's already kind of buggy still, you know, with like their skate 4 moves and their turning and stuff like that, I kind of wish that they would make it a little bit better than what it is, especially now that you get 2-shot by everything in the game now that just runs up and hits you, even like the little itty bitty bugs, like the little Wilbur bugs. They do a lot of damage now, and plus, like, you're putting yourself in harm's way, and you can catch yourself on fire and everything else. Like, to me, I feel like it's a very meh weapon right now. You know, maybe you guys can sway me in the comment section, but just let me know what your take is on the flamethrower. The machine gun, I do think it's probably B. I kind of want to put it in A because I really like this gun, but if I'm going to be objective about this, like, it's very average, in my opinion. You know, it does one thing very, very well, and that is crowd control, right? So anything from warriors to brute commanders to ball spewers does very well against them. Anything else from like chargers to ball like ball titans doesn't do that great against them. It just doesn't. But it's just a fun little thing to use, in my opinion. Like, to me, it's very, very fun. So I would probably put it in A tier. But just based upon performance, I think it's kind of like a man weapon at this point in time. The Quasar Cannon, I do think is S. Some people say that the Quasar Cannon is probably better than the Recoilless. I still think the Recoilless is just better because it has a team reload to it. It also has a really quick reload to it, and ammo is not an issue right now in Helldivers 2, like, at all. If Helldivers 2 had a really bad ammo issue, I would probably put the Quasar Cannon in like super S tier. But for the time being, I just think that the Recoilless is just better in every single way. But the Quasar Cannon, you shoot it once, it recharges, you can shoot it again, it recharges, you shoot again. It can one-shot charges in the head, it can one-shot ball titans in the head. It's just an overall just a phenomenal weapon at this point in time, so I'm going to put it in S tier. The laser cannon, I do think is kind of meh, in my opinion. It's not bad, it's not trash as it was before, but it does feel better, in my opinion. You know, it has AP4 now. It can set things on fire, which is good. But for the time being, I kind of want to put it in B tier. It does okay against Ball Titans heads, to be honest with you. But until they change, you know, something with it, you know, or like maybe give it like a little bit more damage if you hit a particular spot more often. If I had like, I wish that it would like do more damage as you hit a thing, but it doesn't. It's just consistent damage, like over time. Kind of wish it was the opposite. I wish the damage would ramp up very quickly. I think that'd be interesting for the laser cannon, but for the time being, I'm gonna put it in B tier. The rail cannon, I do think is A. I'm almost tempted to put it in S because I do find it to be really fun against bugs. But I'm gonna put it in A tier right now. So it can somewhat two-tap Bile Titans in the head. It's kind of inconsistent. I would still, and so that's Bile Titans. For chargers, I would still 2-tap to 3-tap charger legs with it. So it's very versatile, and it has great ammo economy, in my opinion. Does very well against Bile Spewers, very well against Impalers. You know, it definitely has its use cases, but, you know, if it did like a little bit more damage against chargers, I would put it in S tier. I don't think they should one-shot Bile Titans in the head, though, in my opinion, because then Bile Titans would just be a joke at that point. But I do think that I think it's a very, very good weapon right now. I'm almost tempted to put it in S tier because of how versatile it is, but for the time being, I do feel like it's a very, very fun weapon to use against the Terminids. It's just probably not S tier, in my opinion. The Fade Recoilless is very, very good. I think it's the best weapon against Terminids as we speak right now. It just does everything, right? You know, it has programmable ammo to where you can handle things in groups. So, like, you can either do anti-tank or you can do explosive rockets, right? The explosive rockets are okay. They're not that great, but I'm not bringing this thing because I want explosive rockets. I'm bringing it for anti-tank purposes only. It can one-shot charges in the head, and it can one-shot Bile Titans in the head. It has team reload to it. If you don't have a teammate, who cares? It has a fast reload to it already, right? So, in my opinion, like, it's a very, 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 very good weapon. In my opinion, I think it probably is. I mean, I still think the Autocannon is probably the best support weapon in the game right now because of how versatile it is. But a Recoilless is a very close second in my opinion. I do think it's the best Terminid weapon overall because of how quickly it just kills anti-tanks. Because your primaries are just so good right now that you can kind of handle, as long as you have armor or like medium armor penetrating weapons, you can kind of handle anything that Terminid front throws at you for the most part, in my opinion. And that's not including like any of those stratagems that you have. So, in my opinion, I think it does very, very well currently. So I'm gonna put it in S tier. The spear, I feel like the ammo content of the spear is kind of ass right now, and the Recoilless does what the spear does, but the Recoilless does it better because it has more ammo to it and has a faster reload. So I'm gonna put the spear in probably B tier right now. It's not bad, right? It's not a bad anti-tank. It's not as an efficient anti-tank as like a Quasar or a Recoilless, or definitely not a Recoilless. So for the time being, I'm definitely gonna put it in B tier because like the lock-on's fine. I wish that it would just one-shot chargers in the body, regardless, right? But you still kind of have to like finagle your way into like aim for the head and stuff like that. Whereas with the Recoilless, you don't have to worry about that. You aim, and as long as you're good at just kind of like maybe leading your shot every now and then for it, you'll kill a charger, like no problem. Same thing with the Bile Titan. You can have to finagle and kind of get a way of like aiming for the head and stuff like that. But it's, I just wish it like a little bit more damage against Bile Titans and chargers. Even like one-shot territory to the bodies type of thing. Maybe like two-shot Bile Titans to the bodies, which I think it probably does that already. But definitely one-shot Bile Titans, chargers wherever you hit them. The Stalwart, I'm gonna put in C tier. I don't know why people like this gun. I really don't. Light armor penetrating rounds, which is a knock for me because I like medium armor penetrating weapons against Terminids currently, which is what the machine gun does. I understand that the versatility of it, you can run around and reload with and stuff like that. In my opinion, this gun does not need to be a support weapon. It needs to be a primary weapon. And this is why I'm putting in C tiers, because like it does its job at CCing everything, right? But I think that the Stalwart is just better as a primary and not really a support weapon. It doesn't have the power fantasy of a support weapon. It has the power fantasy of a primary weapon, like a very, very good primary weapon. If it was a primary weapon, it would be an S tier primary weapon because it has a lot of ammo. You can CC everything with it and just mow down all kinds of enemies and stuff like that. Like, to me, it feels more like a primary weapon than it is a support weapon. But I'm gonna put it in C tier currently because, like, to me, it just doesn't feel like a support weapon. And of course, the Airburst rocket. This might be a controversial take. I do find this thing to be an A tier. They buffed the damage of it by like a lot. Well, I'm gonna say a lot. It has the same damage as the fragmentating grenades. And what that means is that you can one-shot chargers with this now if you aim underneath them. Rocket. That's all it takes. It does very, very well against groups of enemies as well. You'll take out like 12, 13, 14 enemies at a time with it, as long as they're decently kind of grouped up together. It feels actually pretty good to use right now. I feel like why it's not S tier in my opinion is that the Airburst explosions, like, so whenever the rocket hit and then it just goes off into many directions, I still think that it should go away from me and not towards me. So, like the actual, like the little pepper bombs that it releases, right? Or like the air bombs or whatever, right? If they went away from me, or like in a circle or something, right? I feel like it would be way better at that point. I'd probably say S tier at that point, because the overall feel of the weapon would be better. But the feel of the weapon right now kind of feels good right now. I'm not gonna lie, it feels very, very good. It's not really good against Bile Titans, particularly, but against Charger, anything that's Charger or below, it does actually very, very well. Like, very, very well. So definitely use it against Terminids. I would not knock this weapon on Terminids currently. I do find this to be a very, very good weapon currently. against Terminids. I just think that the overall feel of the weapon needs to be a little bit better, and that probably would be S tier. So this is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Like, share, subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.